Welcome to this presentation on comma rules, part 2, where we will be focusing on comma rules related to fanboys and interrupters. Like last time, one of the rules we're encountering this week is sort of review, one is new. The fanboys rule is review. We have talked previously about how you can connect two full sentences with a comma and fanboys. And what we were focusing on is identifying where the first full sentence ended and the second full sentence began. And then you had to add the comma plus the fanboys. And you had to add both pieces because basically the comma and fanboy, that glue is only sticky enough when you have both pieces. This time, you are going to be focusing more on whether or not you have a full sentence on both sides, because you're going to get a group of words that has a fanboy in the middle, and you have to decide, is there a full sentence on both sides? And if there is, then I can put a comma. But if there isn't, I have to leave it alone. So here's an example. We should go to Grandma's house, for she spoils us. You look for the fanboy. We see 4 there. And so we're double checking. Do we have a full sentence before? We should go to Grandma's house. Because the subject, verb makes sense on its own. So it's a full sentence. And then she spoils us. It has a subject. It has a verb. Makes sense on its own. Full sentence. So what that means is all we would need to do is add that comma before the fanboy 4. Okay, so here's another example to practice on. The baby goat ran around the barn and jumped up on the pig. So the first part, the baby goat ran around the barn. We have a subject, the goat, the verb, ran, and it makes sense on its own. The second part, jumped up on a pig. Well, we have the verb, jumped, right? But who or what did the jumping? The goat. But that's not there, so it's a fragment. So that means we can't use the comma fanboy rule. It's okay as is. We do not add a comma because it's a full sentence in a fragment, not 2 full sentences. So our rule 4, this is the new one, and commas around an interrupter. An interrupter is a word or a phrase that interrupts a full sentence. And the interrupter often goes between the subject and the verb in a full sentence. The interrupter adds information about the subject. We're going to use this idea that the interrupter often comes between the subject and the verb to help us pinpoint what the interrupter is. So you look for the subject and the verb, and then you look what interrupts them. That's likely our interrupter. Is it giving more information about the subject? Yep, that sounds like our interrupter. And if you take it out, you should still have a full sentence if you take the interrupter out. Okay. So if you cover it up, you're still left with a sentence that makes sense. And if that's the case, it passes all those rules, then you put commas on both sides of the interrupter to set it off. So here's our example. Jake, who is my brother, found a lost dog. So what's the subject? Jake. What's the verb? Found. Okay, so Jake found. That means we're looking to see if who is my brother is the interrupter. So we've identified the subject, we've identified the verb, we think we know what the interrupter is. If we cover it up, do we have a full sentence left? Jake found a lost dog. We do. It still makes sense. So we've correctly identified the interrupter, which is who is my brother. So we put commas around it. Let's look at another one. Juanita Reyes, MD, is a guest speaker. So the subject is Juanita Reyes, and the verb is. And there's just a short little bit in between the subject and the verb. If we cover it up, Juanita Reyes is a guest speaker, it still makes sense. So we put commas around the interrupter. Now, sometimes that feels weird because it's so short, like titles or like degrees or even nicknames. Think of James Bond 007. I guess that's a title. But those little bits that go after names, sometimes those are function as interrupters, like MD. MD stands for medical doctor. You also might have a case where, see how there's a period after D because it's an abbreviation. You just start stacking the punctuation. It happens. It's weird. We just live with it. So the interrupters and the fanboys, those are our 2 comma rules for the week. So go ahead and try out those exercises.